Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I wanted to share with you a few more discoveries that I have come across with the new Legion monoliths. So I've been taking quite a bit of a break from the emblem farming. I feel like I've gotten pretty much everything I wanted to get out of that feature, and I'm back into maps now to kind of explore the actual Legion mechanic in its whole and really min-max it in the map area where kind of a few more of us spend a lot more of our time. So I've done quite a range of different maps, and I've done both red maps, white maps, yellow maps, all of the maps now, and I have made quite a few discoveries which I wanted to share with the community and kind of inform you guys about, because I think some of these are pretty big kind of points when considering what kind of a strategy you want to go for. So in the background, you're going to see me just running some Alk and Go maps, and I was just testing this out to see how much currency you could make and to see if sections were worth it. And that's going to be another video, but you guys will see that I make quite a few bits of chaos in the background here, probably about 40 or 50 just in the span of this video, just by drops from the monoliths. So to begin with, this was mentioned in a dev stream, but armies do scale with increased quantity. That is 100% a fact, and I have figured out that exact fact there. Now, in terms of how it scales, this can be a bit confusing, and it was a bit confusing for myself. So in low quantity maps, you'll notice that there is two sides of an army, and it is cut down the middle. And the way the quantity works is that it'll spawn in the first half of the army, and it'll get to like the second half, and it'll stop. So you'll often notice in a lot of your maps that one half is far overrepresented and the other is underrepresented, meaning there's like a massive half of an army and then a little bit. But in higher quantity maps, you actually get that second half of the army to spawn in further, and that is what I was noticing. Now, why this is particularly important and why this might be really cool is because the further you spawn in that second half of the army, it's now potentially giving you an increased chance at additional reward monsters, and maybe if you spawn in like enough quantity, you can even get an additional general at the end there, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video because I did do a few tests with that. So where I discovered this mainly is I was running tier 16 maps for a bit, and of course when you're running tier 16 maps, you do the chisels, you do the sacrificial fragments, and you do all that crazy stuff. And I was noticing the armies were significantly larger, and I'm assuming that is because of the increased quantity. I was running like 120%, 130, 40% quant maps, upwards from there. Now, some interesting interactions which might work with this is Tempest Prophecies. So Tempest Prophecies, for those who don't know, add a flat amount of quantity to the map, but they're not quite on the map. They're kind of just an anomaly that you spawn into the map, which adds a modifier onto the map, which increases quantity. However, when you load into the map, it actually will add that quantity onto, as you can see here, the 72% increased quantity. It would be 90% perhaps with a Tempest. So it's actually possible that the Tempest Prophecies may also increase the size of the army spawn. So that might be something to test out for people. One further note I want to make is that it is possible that it was not only the quantity of the map increasing the size of the army, but also the tier, because as I said, I was doing tier 16s at the time, and that is where I started to notice that the second half of the army was spawning in far more. So that's the quantity and the army scales out of the way. Next thing I noticed is that rewards do scale with the zone item level. So if you're doing T16 maps, you're going to get significantly different rewards, similar to what I discussed in the emblem video. So there's different reward tables for the different levels that you're doing. And this is a really good introduction that GGG has made, meaning the higher the tier you're doing, the more rewarding it will be. And this I do have a bit more information about, because obviously I've done a lot of those high emblems, and I've now seen a similar pattern in T16 maps. So tier 16 maps, armies can drop things like mortal fragments, they can drop things like shaper fragments, pale court fragments, all of those fragments. So fragments are a big thing, as you can see. They'll drop better incubators, they'll drop things like the 6-link incubator, they'll drop things like time lost, thaumaturgy will be far more common, and of course the bases will be better as well. So you'll be able to get things like the shaper and elder bases and all that jazz. So it goes beyond there. Some other items drop obviously higher tier maps, but those are the main ones that I've picked on out there. So the incubators, the fragments, and the maps, and obviously the bases. Those are the main things you're going to notice from the armies, and perhaps even bigger quantity as we discussed earlier. So next up, we're going to touch on incubators here, but I have a massive video on them coming up, so we're not going to go into too much depth. but the incubator rewards also do scale with the item level of the incubator. So if you guys want to make some easy money, what you guys should go and do is whoop 86 item level 86 fragment incubators, because those can drop like all of the Adziri, Uber Adziri fragments, all the Shaper fragments, and all of the Pale Court fragments, which can be sometimes worth a lot of currency. And I've been running mine, and I've been getting like Minotaur fragments, all of the Uber Adziri sets, and it's been pretty crazy. I've been testing that, and I have some data on that coming up. But yeah, anyway, the upshot here is that higher item level incubators drop different things and better things, which is pretty interesting, specifically with fragments and obviously bases. Now, there is a bit of a tinfoil hat theory going around that the scarab incubators drop more gilded scarabs at higher item levels. However, this is currently unconfirmed, and I will have to do more testing on that to see if that is the fact. And if it is the fact, then that is another kind of cool little market thing that the people who are aware of that fact can then go and like whoop them and buy all the high item levels and get more gilded scarabs for a same price point as the lower item level ones, which is pretty cool. So that's very interesting. Incubator item levels, you're going to get more rewards for higher item level maps you do, which is pretty damn cool indeed. Next up, this one is again a little bit of like, it's anecdotal evidence. It's just what I feel and what I felt doing the maps. So in T16 maps, I felt I got a lot more generals, and I got multiple generals at a time. So if you don't know, the generals are these big unique monsters that spawn at the ends of the armies, and when you kill them, they drop like anywhere between like 5 to 10 splinters of their faction. So this is very, very rewarding, and getting more of these means more income, obviously, per map. And I did feel like I was getting significantly more of these in tier 16 maps, and I did also feel like I was getting multiple at once. That was happening a few times, where I can't even remember a time where I've gotten that to happen in low tier maps. I think I've only ever gotten one general at a time in white maps, so that is definitely something to watch out for. In addition to that, that may also be quantity having some effect here, so that obviously extends the army, meaning maybe more generals spawn because of quantity. So this is all very interesting information coming in, meaning sacrificial fragments, tempests, chisels, and stuff like that might be very much worth your time, even on white maps, just because of the fact they might spawn in that additional general, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So next up, another thing that I noticed with high tier maps versus low tier maps is that the Mariketh and the Templar faction spawned in quite a bit more. What it felt like was that it was actually equal weighted between all 5 at tier 16, where you can definitely notice that the Templar and Mariketh factions are a lot rarer at lower tier maps. So again, this is just anecdotal. I don't have any hard evidence here. I'd have to do 100 T16 maps and see the splinter drops to really get a feel for this, which I'm not really looking to do right now. I'm going to do some other things, but perhaps that's an experiment for someone else. But yeah, it definitely did feel like I was getting a lot more Mariketh and Templar in T16 maps, so that's also something to consider. So next, the last thing I want to talk about here in this little short update video and tip video is that indoor maps pretty much are out. You do not want to be doing indoor maps, and you want to be looking for a map which is quick, has the monolith outside, and hopefully centered in the middle of the map. So currently, in my opinion, the best 2 maps for this in the game, with the best one being Dunes. This one is basically far above everything else in terms of the spawning in of the army. It will pretty much always spawn in a complete full army, and it's always in the middle of the map. Dunes is a very small map. Ooh, I'm about to sneeze. Ooh, there we go. So yeah, it's very, very good, and you guys can really like get the full juice out of your army. It's incredibly fast to trigger the army, and if you guys don't know, if you trigger all of the monsters in the army early, it'll just crack that army out right away, and that actually can be very, very good for clear speed, really cutting down the amount of time you're in maps and increasing your monoliths per hour, which seems to be a bit of a phrase developing this league. Another map which is a little bit more accessible for the masses, which doesn't require you to shape around kind of like yellow maps or use yellow sextants, is actually Glacier, which you've seen me running here a bit in the background. So what's unique about Glacier, even though it doesn't always spawn in the full army every time, because it can get cut off a bit in the starting area because it's a little bit small, is that the monolith will always spawn in the start, giving you an interesting gameplay opportunity where if you wanted to, you could skip the second half of the map, which generally doesn't drop anywhere near as much loot as the first half, because the monolith is always in the first half of the map. It will never spawn inside the ice cave, to my knowledge. knowledge, and what you can do is just zone in monolith, zone out, blah 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 blah, and just keep going and just power farm the monolith. And even though it is tier 2, Maraketh and Templar still do show up. Obviously, I think it's probably about you get them half as often as the others, according to my testing, but you will still rack up quite a lot of splinters. Obviously, the generals, like the Maraketh general, can still spawn in. I think you actually will see that in this video. So you can start making quite a lot of currency just in Glacier, which is also a very good map, and it has white sections if you do want to go down that route. Full clearing the map doesn't take that much longer either, because it's a pretty small map, and you can probably make quite a lot of currency here. Obviously, there's no divination cards, there's no opportunity for sacrificial fragments, but if you're just going for monoliths per hour, I think Glacier is definitely one of the better options this league, and you guys can check that out. So just to sum up what we've talked about in this video, it looks like the T16s, definitely there's a lot of incentive there to really push there and try and kind of do those. But for me personally, I really don't like messing around with mapping materials like prophecies, like Plague of Frogs and stuff like that. Trying to buy that is really annoying. I don't like to use the sacrificial fragments myself. I like to sell them. I feel like that's a lot more effective. And just in general, I just really like doing maps really quickly, and T16 maps kind of are a bit of a mess around. So I'm going to be sticking to white maps, but obviously if you need to do a few T16s, for example, I'm going to need to get Sulfite because I want to do some Delve. You can just use the Zana Elder mod on there, and you can just get Sulfite that way, which is pretty cool. So PoE has become very flexible. You can really just play however you want, and there's a lot of options this league as well. So yeah, we'll be going a lot more into incubators and map choice and stuff like in the future. But that's been this video, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.